room full of fascinating strangers.
How has your con been so far?
I love Momocon. Actually, Momocon is my absolute favorite. This is my second. I love Atlanta, and maybe I wish I loved Atlanta's bars a little bit less, frankly, to be honest with you, you know, but hey, what can you do? You'd think at 62 years old I'd learn. I'm not always that wise.
And actually, 2 years in person plus 1 online as well, right?
Oh, that's right,
So
it sure
this is
has.
the third year
Absolutely,
that this
yeah.
panel
This
is
is
happening.
technically my third Momocon, I think, yeah.
That is a massive compliment. We normally don't get guests coming back over and over and over.
Well, I was
again.
shocked that they asked me back this year because, I mean, have you met me? I mean, really, seriously.
I mean, this is Atlanta. We're pretty chill.
It is indeed. That's when my wife and I were moving from our home in California. Because, you know, the kids were growing and we thought, LA's, oh, I love LA, but it is crowded and it's expensive. And we knew we wanted to move to a film production center. And we narrowed it down to Albuquerque and Atlanta. So we could easily have chosen Atlanta. We ended up choosing Albuquerque because I was born in New Mexico. So I was familiar with the climate. But I could easily have been an Atlantean? Is that an Atlantean? That's the word?
Atalian.
Atlanteans?
Atalian.
I mean, it's cool. Atlantean sounds cool. If it's not, it should be. Exactly.
Yeah.
It sounds cool.
Whichever one's the coolest.
Not Atlanta. Not during the summer. That's not the coolest. But speaking of, you said film center. We don't really have any voiceover. So were you looking to get into live action when you were here?
You know, I actually, yeah, but my wife for years has pushed me to do more live action. I haven't done a lot of it, and I'll tell you why. I'm lazy. You know, you make a SAG scale is the same for live action and voice acting.
Really?
So I make the same money for, you know, an hour recording, you know, as opposed to 15 hours sitting on a set all day. I know which one I want to do, you know. I'll take the job that you only have to work for an hour. That's how I roll, baby.
Speaking of, who all in the audience has ever been a part of the Atlanta film industry? We got a couple of people. You're all raising your hand like, yeah, you know, it's about as bad as you say. But getting back to voiceover, let's go sort of back to the beginning, not quite the beginning, but what was the audition process like for Iroh and Aku?
You know, it was interesting. The Aku was very different. When I auditioned for Avatar, I literally, just like you do, I got an email from my agent at the time. And they said, you know, they're looking for a voice match for Mako, and they sent along a voice sample. And that was cool because I knew that I had been doing an impression of Mako for, you know, since 1977. So, and I was working for Disney at the time in business and legal affairs, and oh, how I miss those fabulous days of business and legal affairs. Talk about, this is nothing, man. That's an exciting career. Business and legal affairs, all those attorneys, they're wonderful people. Actually, I digress, the Marvel people were some of the biggest, you know, some of the most cutthroat individuals on the face of this planet, as you would expect from Marvel. Yeah, those attorneys weren't messing around. But I digress. So I recorded it at my desk at Disney at the time and sent it in. I thought, well, it's a little weird that, because Mako was still alive at the time, and I thought, well, maybe because sometimes, you know, an actor's not available or doesn't want to do a video game, and so they look for a voice match. And that's what I thought they were doing. And we were actually at, my son and I used to go down to Comic-Con in San Diego in the days when you could actually show up and actually get into Comic-Con on the day that you showed up. So it was a while ago. And that's when actually I heard on the radio traveling down there that Mako had passed away. And that's where, oh, they're actually looking for a replacement. But, you know, we went to the Comic-Con, didn't think anything about it, went back to work at Disney the next week. And I think it was like a Wednesday, something like that. After 13 years with the company, I was laid off. For the first time. Disney laid me off twice, but that's another story. That's just how Disney rolls. But, and so I was devastated, you know.
About that when you're done with it.
Absolutely. I was devastated. And literally, within an hour, my agent calls me and they say, Nickelodeon wants to see you in person. You're their top pick for Uncle Iroh. So when you hear them say, when one door closes, another door opens, I can absolutely say with absolute certainty that can happen sometimes. So from that point, I think I went down to Nickelodeon about 3 times. And every time I went, there were more people layered in. So by the last audition, I'm literally there, Mike and Brian are there, all the executives from Nickelodeon are there, Andre Romano's there. I mean, literally there's lots of people on the other side of the booth. And I record, you know, I'm pretty terrified. I know this is a big life-changing possibility for me. And so I do my audition. I think I did pretty well. And Andrea says, okay, we're gonna turn off the sound out here so we can talk about you. And I literally remember looking at these people all talking animatedly to one another, thinking these guys are debating my future career, you know. Is it gonna be business and legal affairs or something really cool like traveling to, you know, Atlanta Momocon? And fortunately, even then, I think it was another 2 weeks before they called me, and I thought, oh, well, that's it, they chose somebody else. But they did finally call. And the very next day, I didn't mean to do it. We had already planned on taking the kids to Disneyland the next day and taking them out of school. So in my case, what do you do when you get cast as Uncle Iroh? I'm going to Disneyland. And it was a beautiful day. I wept. The fireworks never made me weep quite as much as they did that particular night. Samurai Jack was a little different because I didn't audition for Samurai Jack per se. You know, I knew that the show was going to have a 5th season, but I had not been called, and it was, you know, it was getting pretty late in the game, and I thought again, well, they just probably recast me because that happens, you know. And so I finally get an email, and it says, Gendy would like you to come to the first recording session and actually do the gig. You get paid for the gig, and he'll decide if he wants to direct you at the session. So I'm literally going to this gig knowing everything is riding on this gig. Phil Lamar's there, who's a lovely, lovely human being. And the most beautiful words ever, as I was leaving the recording booth, Gendy says to me, thank you very much, I'll see you again soon. And I say, all right, I think I got the job, I think I got the job. And that's the story of Samurai Jack.
The same, I know you also did pick up for Master Splinter in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Was that a separate audition?
That was, I think the word I had already been cast as Iroh, and they knew that they were going to have to record a substantial amount of dialogue. So they actually called my agent and called me in for that and said, you know, we understand that your client's now Uncle Iroh, you know, so he must do a fairly decent impression of Mako. And I always, every now and then, someone will give me a print or something that they want me to sign of Master Splinter. And I don't feel like I can sign as Master Splinter because I'm not credited as Master Splinter. Moreover, that was Mako's last feature credit, and it's like, I don't want to step on that at all. Yeah. So if anyone asks me to sign anything as Splinter, I sign it sort of Splinter. Splinterish. Splinterish, I guess. So, you know, Splinterish. I think that's a good way of putting it, you know, without really dissing my, you know, the great Mako.
Yes. And you mentioned you got fired by Disney twice.
I did.
I am obsessed with, like, Disney firing stories.
Well, I didn't get fired for cause.
Yes.
I didn't get fired. I just got laid off. At Disney, every 5 years, the layoffs would come, and I survived a lot of rounds. Eventually, it just catches up with you. I bear them no, you know, ill will, because they hired me back.
Yeah.
You know, I worked for Disney, they laid me off. They hired me back, they laid me off. I worked for Marvel, which is sort of Disney, and this time I quit. The same thing I did for Disney. And you might never have thought about this, every film, you know, studio has a department devoted specifically to screen credits. What that basically means is what I did throughout my career at Disney, Marvel specifically, from from Iron Man 3 all the way to Ant-Man. I prepared and proofed and approved all the screen credits in those films, every single one. And I'll tell you a secret. You know, on Avengers: Age of Ultron, you know, there was Stellan Skarsgård, I think, is it? And you know how Scandinavian names have that little the thing over the A, right? The little, and in the main titles credit, it was in the right place. But if you go back and watch Age of Avengers: Ultron, you will see that it's in the wrong place in the end crawl.
Oh, no.
So don't tell Disney, okay? They can't touch me now. Come for me, Mr. Mouse, I dare you.
But you are still working with Disney, right? You're
Oh,
on
absolutely,
Ghost and Molly.
absolutely. Now that you mention it, yes, I am. I didn't mean anything. I didn't. Honestly, I love you, Mickey Mouse, man. You guys are the best. Yes, and you know what? Watch the Ghost and Molly McGee. It's a wonderful show. We were renewed for a second season. We really want a third season, but that's going to depend just on viewership. So if you really want to, do me a solid, watch the Ghost and Molly McGee. Gray Azula is in the show with me as well. So it's kind of. Anytime you can work with Gray is a good day.
Okay, so you've worked with Disney both on the legal and as a voice actor. When you're a voice actor, do you get a blue ID?
No, I don't get an ID at all.
So
No
you
idea.
don't get to go to the parks for free?
No, as an employee, as an actor. Actually, I asked the guys that voiced Mickey Mouse and I think Goofy.
Last
year. I think I did a panel with them. I said, so tell me, you guys at least have a lifetime pass to Disneyland, and they don't even have a lifetime. I know. Can you imagine? I mean, that's just messed up, man. This is the voice of Mickey Mouse. Walt was the first voice of Mickey Mouse.
That's crazy.
Now that I think about it, talking about filling Mako's shoes. How'd you like to fill Walt Disney's shoes?
Yeah, and actually, sort of on that subject of being a legacy voice actor, and this is sort of going off track. On Twitter the other day, you mentioned that you were approached by an AI voice company asking if they could replicate your voice, and you were also talking about the fact that, what if this company just decides, oh, why don't we replicate Mako's voice too, and cut me out of the deal. So, what was that like? What did they ask?
Yeah, they were very polite, and I guess they figured they could, and they could, through Cameo, they were able to get in touch with me. And that's how they were able to, to tell me what they wanted to do. And I was very polite. I said, thank you for thinking of me, but I am not at all a supporter of this technology. First of all, it's creepy. It's just creepy. Secondly, why would you ask me to put myself out of a job? I mean, seriously, why would you do that? And AI is eventually going to kill us all, but let's try and at least thwart that as long as we possibly can.
Yeah. But then you've also got a really unique perspective because you've kind of been the voice actor and also the voice of somebody else. So, we can't stop the tech bros, but what advice would you give to them or possibly the people making our laws to try and sort of keep things ethical? Honestly, if it were up to me, I would say don't do it. But the thing is, and actually someone mentioned on Twitter, it doesn't matter whether you gave them permission or not, someone probably has already done it. The genie is out of the bottle. But the thing is, and you can, for example, I use this line, and not to toot my own horn, but it was one of my favorite lines that I ever gave. It was Uncle Iroh, and it was, I was never angry with you. I was sad because I thought you had lost your way. And I don't think a computer could get the tone right, could get the impression of Mako right, but I don't know if a computer would know to go up with the inflection, I was sad. I don't think a computer would know how to do that. And you have to have that human element when you're telling stories. I mean, at the end of the day, a machine can't tell stories. And that's what we do. That's what actually these fan conventions are. They're actually just celebrating the stories that we love and the storytellers who tell them. So I am absolutely opposed to it. Absolutely opposed to it completely. Down there. So we were talking about Disney just a second ago. Have you done any voices for the theme parks at all?
Only one. If you go to Tokyo Disneyland, for some reason they had to re-record this for legal reasons. And if you're waiting in line for Big Thunder Mountain, and you hear the guy going, hold on to your hats and glasses for the wildest ride in the wilderness. I'm the old prospector. So and I gotta tell you, it was one of the coolest things because I recorded over, not at the studio, but at Disney Imagineering. And they have their own recording studio over there. And you walk in and there's pictures of Paul Frees recording the Ghost Host. And all this amazing, and I'm a theme park nerd, and all of this history took place in there. And honestly, it was one of the proudest days of my life to think of, wow, I get to be just a tiny little part of this thing that I've loved my whole life.
And it's also just sort of crazy because it's just every day, over and over and over again, your voice lives there.
Yeah, it's there. It'll be there, long after I'm gone. Again, I want to point out, I am the only Avatar cast member who has some Avatar ink. Nobody loves Avatar as much as I do. and the reason I mention that, because we were talking about when I'm gone, and someone recently said to me, Craig, you got that tattoo. How do you feel about putting something so permanent on your body? I'm 62 years old, it ain't that permanent. Bring everybody down now.
I mean, okay.
You gotta laugh, you gotta laugh. What are you gonna do, you know?
So talking about the prospector, I love that voice. Do you have any other impressions that you never really get to showcase?
You know, that actually is one of the reasons that I learned to mimic voices. And anyone that knows anything about me knows how absolutely much I love musical theater. Honestly, I've told the story, musical theater is literally why I got the part of Uncle Iroh. But not only did I listen to Mako doing Pacific overtures over and over again by listening to the record, I would listen to My Fair Lady. I learned how to do Henry Higgins, you know. Or I listened to Yul Brynner as the King of Siam. Or, you know, and that's literally how I personally learned to do dialects and voices. And if you're an aspiring voice actor, it's really a good way to go, especially for accents, because you can do Brigadoon with doing the Scottish accent, or you can be in Finian's Rainbow where they're all Irish as the day is long. Or if Fiddler on the Roof sounds crazy, no, but in our little village of Anatevka. Anyway, and a fun story. My friend Jeff Bennett, who actually I competed against in high school, the voice of Johnny Bravo, he was Dexter's dad. This guy has done, he is literally one of the best in the business. And he gave me this tip. I think he was already doing Johnny Bravo at the time. And Johnny Bravo is basically just an impression of Elvis Presley, really. And that's where he said, it's always a great way to start because you have something concrete to go on. So if you go back and you watch Jedi Master Terra Sinube in the Clone Wars, and then go back and watch the first 2 Harry Potter movies when Richard Harris is still alive to play Dumbledore, you'll know exactly where that voice came from.
So speaking of theater, do you have any fun theater stories?
Oh, you know what? I miss theater more than anything, and because of what I do now, it's becoming very difficult for me to do theater. I've been doing theater literally since 4th grade. You know, I think funny. I mean, there's so many things that have happened over the years. I do think there was one time I was doing a musical called 1776. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a great musical. I was Judge Wilson from Pennsylvania, so I wasn't anybody, you know, well known. And it has one of the longest scenes in all of musical theater without a song, where they're just debating whether or not to debate the issue of independence. I think the scene goes on for like 20 minutes. And one of the main cast members jumped forward about 10 pages. And this was some important information that had to get out. And I've never been so happy in my life to have a small part. Because I'm going, hey man, I'm just Judge Wilson. I'm gonna let Ben Franklin and John Adams figure out how to do this because, you know, I'm not smart enough to do it. Well, fortunately they did, you know.
Yeah, but oh gosh, that's scary.
It was good. But that's one of the things why I love theater. It's so immediate. And I also miss there's a special character in every theater. In every play you do, there's always a new character, and that's the audience. The audience is different every time. You can say a line one night and it gets a laugh. You go, oh, I'm gonna say it the same way tomorrow night and get a bigger laugh, and then, you know, of course it's crickets.
Yeah.
You know, but that's the fun of it. And it's sort of the camaraderie of you're all going towards, I never played sports, but it's almost like a team event. Because everybody has everybody's back on stage, and you're all just trying to give the audience the best time that they possibly can. I haven't done a play though. I think it might have been around 2017 maybe. I was very fortunate to do it's by Stephen Schwartz, who wrote Pippin and Wicked. You guys know Wicked.
Yeah.
One of his lesser known musicals, it's called The Baker's Wife. It's about it takes place in France, and it's a very young girl who marries a very old baker. And I played the very old baker. And what was kind of cool is because I'm a character actor, right? You know, I've never been cast as a leading man. And this particular show, not only did I get to sing a love ballad, but I got the girl at the end. And that was kind of cool. Yeah. That was cool. I was like, check out this old guy.
So when it comes to theater, do you believe in second show curse?
Yeah, yes, I actually do, and I'm very superstitious about mentioning the Scottish play.
Yeah, I literally
Yeah.
never.
I haven't. One of the coolest things that ever happened to me. I haven't done a lot of on-camera work, but I was very fortunate. One of the biggest things I did, I was in a Coen Brothers movie called Hail Caesar, and I played a communist writer named Dutch Weistrong, very cranky fellow. And the coolest thing is that the Coen Brothers frequently, if they work with somebody, they'll ask them back because they like your face, you know, they like your particular look. And I was about to go to a con in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and I got the call and said, they want you to come to the callbacks. Joel Coen is doing a production of the Scottish play, which, if you guys know about the Scottish play, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
All right. And I was
Is
supposed to
anyone
be...
confused?
Yeah.
It is considered very bad, especially in a theater, and this is a theater,
Yeah.
to mention the play that William Shakespeare wrote about a king of Scotland and his wife, and there are witches in it. And you know, I won't say, but I'll say it starts with Mac. I think I can get away with that.
Yeah.
I don't think I've invoked the theater gods by that. Exactly, McDonald's. We'll call it, for lack of a better word, we'll say I was asked to audition for Joel Coen's McDonald's. And it was cool because I got to leapfrog over all the other auditions. But I know the role was Scottish Murderer #2. And it's like, you know, I look like a lot of things, but Scottish Murderer #2, I don't think I'm going to pull that off. I'm not very menacing. So I knew automatically I'm probably not going to get the part. So I walk in to audition, and when I went to the final callback for Hail Caesar, it was just Joel and Ethan and the casting director. So I was thinking it's probably going to be just Joel and the casting director, but it was going to be my reader, the casting director, who reads with you. And I walk in, and it's not the casting director. I realize that I am reading with Frances McDormand. And it was honestly, it was the coolest audition I knew I wasn't going to get, because I can actually say I got to act with an Academy Award winning actress. And I kind of made a fool out of myself. I kind of fanboyed all over it. Well, thank you so much, man. I can't thank you for reading with me, because I'm such a big fan. But that was one of the coolest acting parts, you know, acting stories.
Yeah.
And you know, it's kind of cool. If they're going to be in only one big feature film, it might as well be a Coen Brothers movie, you know? And it's not even the worst Coen Brothers movie. You know, it's like in the middle, assuming that there was one with Tom Hanks, I think, that's supposed to be quite bad. But it's firmly in the middle. I mean, it's not Fargo, you know, but you know, it's not that movie whose title I can't think of the Tom Hanks in it.
The movie that was so bad we can't remember.
I know. We'll call it Wendy's. Hamburger joints when I can't think of the name. Love it.
So are you hungry?
No, actually, I had a really nice breakfast at the hotel. I had to. I went out drinking rum drinks last night at Trader Vic's. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered Dragon Con?
Oh, if they would ask me, I would come in a minute. I was talking to my buddy about it last night. He says, oh, if you like this one, you're going to like that one as well. I understand it's like in several different hotels, and they're sort of themed to what you particularly want to look at.
The Hilton goes all out with the theming every year. Everyone else is just kind of like, you know who we are. We're the Marriott. But yeah, I mean, and there's a pretty good relationship between this con and that con, so hopefully.
Well, I would love to. I will come back to Atlanta anytime.
I'd love to have you. We've got like 5 minutes left, so let's do. Okay, consider these two different questions, because I always ask them as two different questions. If you could bend any element from Avatar: Last Airbender, but also assuming that you then also have to live in that nation, which nation would you want to live in?
I think, and I'd also like to live in that nation. I would not be a firebender. I've always been sort of drawn toward the air nomads, actually. You know, I've always been very interested in spiritual matters, and I think that's just sort of what I would personally gravitate to.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I think, for that matter, although I don't know, I mean, I think even though Iroh is a firebender, I think there's a little bit of all the elements in I see he says it himself. It is important to draw wisdom from different sources, and I think. So what's interesting about Iroh is he's almost an avatar. I mean, he's literally that powerful, you know.
He's sort of the first character that's like, hey, by the way, you know, you can do more than one thing.
Yeah, exactly.
There are these rigid lines, and they don't need to be here.
Rigidity. I even said that right. Rigidity, that's hard to say.
Did I?
Yeah, no, rigidity is always a bad
First
thing.
hard word I've said
Yeah.
right this whole
Always
convention.
always a bad thing, you know. You don't want to be, if people expect me to be as wise as Uncle Iroh, and I'm not. I wish I was. I would love to have that level of wisdom. His words of wisdom, because I have them memorized, have float around in my head all the time. But I'm only as wise as any 62-year-old guy who's reasonably paying attention. You know? But I wish, it is interesting. Iroh, honestly, apart from my wife and my children, by far the greatest blessing of my life has been able to voice this character that means so much to so many people. My wife, I was talking to her one time, and I said, I think it's ironic that I have only one nephew in all the world, and Iroh is supposed to be famous, for being this uncle. I just have one nephew. And she said to me, it was one of the nicest things she ever said to me. She said, Greg, you have millions of nieces and nephews. And you know what? I get a little choked up thinking about it. I do. It sounds a little weird. I do think of you as my nieces and nephews. I really do. And you know what? I honor that. I honor Mako, and I honor this wonderful character. And as I've told people at my table, they want to know if Iroh is my favorite character. And I say, no, he's not my favorite character. Aku is a character. He's a great character, but he's a character. SpongeBob SquarePants is a character. Based on the amount of actual good that Iroh has done in the real world, that's not a character. That's real. Iroh is absolutely real. He's as real as Santa Claus, and I'm here to tell you that Santa Claus is absolutely real.
Speaking of real life things, I saw on your real Twitter that you are thinking about running for governor.
Yes.
How real is that?
Honestly, it was in the last election. I was born in New Mexico, and that's where I live now. And it's a very sparsely populated state. There's only a 1.5 million people in the whole state. And the last gubernatorial election, one of the candidates was simply the weatherman on an Albuquerque news station. And I thought to myself, now if a weatherman can get nominated for governor, I bet Uncle Iroh could win. That opens up a whole bag of work, because there are some issues that I feel very, very, very strongly about. If you follow me on Twitter, you might not like all the things that I have to say, which is also, everybody loves Uncle Iroh. Nobody is gonna, not nobody, but everybody is not gonna love Greg Baldwin, candidate for governor. And that's something that I would have to deal with, because I like, we all like to be loved. The vitriol that's hurled at the politicians, it would be a hard thing. But if I could truly use this voice that I've been blessed with to actually affect some actual good in this world in a very dark time where I think we need a ray of light, I would do it in a heartbeat. Plus, it would be kind of cool to be governor of New Mexico. I just think, the only thing now, and I've talked to my wife and my children about it. I was talking to my daughter about it in California just last week, and she said, and it's true, and I have to weigh this very, very carefully. She said, Dad, a public life is what you wanted. You signed on for this. This is what you enjoy. You thrive on it. Mom and my brother and I didn't. And if you go into politics, they're going to start digging around, and we're going to become involved too. So that is something that I have to weigh very, very carefully. But honestly, I would say at this point, I'm about 75% certain that I'm just going to give it a try, because why not? Why not try? It would be something interesting to do. So, I'm Greg Baldwin, and I approve this message.
Do you have like a campaign?
I probably shouldn't. If you follow me on Twitter, no, I'm not even going to say this.
Are you talking about the one picture of Uncle Iroh?
Oh, now we do have the one picture of Uncle Iroh making an obscene gesture, which people seem to love. But also, someone had drawn it for me years ago and created it for me. Said, I think you'd like this. And so I said, wow, man, I'm going to use this. And I use it more than I should. But there are so many people who deserve it, man.
Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, what did they say this time?
This is someone, if you follow me on Twitter, you also know that I'm very vocal. How shall I put this? I aspire to be the Willie Nelson / Snoop Dogg of voice actors. If you follow my meaning, if you receive my meaning. And I'm very upfront about that. And so somebody said, instead of a candidacy, it's going to be my candidacy.
right at the halfway through point, so I'm going to do one last question from me, and then we're going to take questions from the audience. Line is going to be down the middle with our fantastic runner right here. She's going to ask you to preview your question beforehand, so just make a little bit of space from the mic so that we don't pick everybody else's voices up. So last question for me. You mentioned before that you would love to be as wise as Uncle Iroh. People are always asking you for wise advice, and you're not. You don't consider yourself to be quite that wise. So I was wondering if you could possibly give us some terrible advice? Maybe like the worst advice you can think of.
The worst advice would be to order a third Mai Tai at Trader Vic's. I can speak from personal experience this morning. I can absolutely, I stand by that. Totally stand by that.
Thank you so much. And with that, let's open it up to our favorite nephew.
Hello, my nephew.
Do we have the audience mic on, please? Hiccups. Try speaking directly into it. Oh yeah, okay. Basically, eat the mic. It's your friend.
Good morning, Uncle.
Good morning, my friend.
So I love that you're a big fan of musical theater. I am too. I did it all throughout high school. So my question for you is, if you had to watch any musical theater production, play or musical for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh my heavens, that's a hard question. Honestly, I would have to say, and it truly is my favorite musical, and not just because it ended up giving me my career. Sometimes Pacific Overtures is my favorite musical. And the cool story about that is, the reason I got Iroh was because of Pacific Overtures. I would listen to, and an actor that several years ago, an actor that had been seminal to me, passed away. He was an actor named Albert Finney. And I came in that morning crying to my wife. I said, oh no, Albert Finney is dead. I wish that I had just written to him to let him know what he had done for my life. Even if he never read it, I just wanted to put it out into the universe. And my wife says, yeah, but Stephen Sondheim's still alive. And at the time he was. And so I just wrote him a letter saying, you've never heard of me, sir, but this is what happened. You wrote this musical, and I ended up getting this amazing part because of the musical you wrote. And I ended it with, there's a lyric in a song from Pacific Overtures talking about how it's the ripple, not the stream. It's the small things that add up to the big things. And I said, Mr. Sondheim, I am one of those ripples that you talk about. I am one of those ripples. And I just sent it off thinking, okay, I sent it to his agent in New York thinking, okay, at least I put it out there. I've done my job. I've thanked someone for doing something wonderful for me. 3 weeks later, he writes me back. It's on a note card that has clearly been written on an old-time typewriter, which I think is how he likes to write his lyrics. And he wrote, thank you so much for your kind words, Greg. I'm glad that the show had such a salubrious effect on your life. Now, the first thing I do is I look up salubrious to make sure he was not dissing me. And then I realize, only Sondheim would even know this word, let alone use it. So I have it framed on my wall. It is literally one of my most prized possessions. It's right next to the album that I listened to when I was 17 years old. So, yeah, musical theater is, and I find it interesting that probably the Venn diagram of people that attend fan conventions and people that love musical theater, there's probably quite a huge overlap. And just for voice actors in general, any one of us, I think in the Avatar, we all sing. And I think it's it goes with being a voice actor and using the voice to the fullest extent. Yeah, probably Pacific Overtures. I'm a big fan of Sweeney Todd too. Yeah. Now, if you're talking Golden Age, I love My Fair Lady. I've always liked that.
Can I leave you with a quick Uncle joke?
Sure.
So, Uncle, have I told you about the horror book that I'm reading in Braille?
I am not.
Well, I know something bad's about to happen. I can feel it.
I tell you what, I tell you a joke about Zuko, but it might leave him scarred. I tell you a joke about Toph, but I don't think she'd see the humor. I tell you a joke about Ozai, but oh, brother. I didn't just come up with those, by the way. I'm not nearly that clever. After long consideration, I've got a list of them.
Okay, hello. My
Hello.
question is, if you could voice any other character in Avatar, who would it be and why?
The villains are always fun. The villains are great, but if I could voice any character at all, I wouldn't mind voicing Azula. I mean, to be honest with you, that's a great character, you know, when she's got some meaty scenes, when she's got her breakdown, I mean, that would be the character to voice, I think. Ozai's just mean. Azula has layers. And I do think the only thing, and I would like to ask Mike and Brian this, if I'm ever lucky enough to be in the room with them, is Iroh loves his son, he loves his nephew, he clearly loves lots of people. And yet, for his niece, who has problems, clearly, you know, she has psychological damage. I think it's interesting that he says, no, crazy needs to go down. We can't help her. And I am firmly in the Azula needs a redemption arc camp. I think I would like to see it. You know, I think Gray is like, no, just let some people just be bad because they are bad. But I think I'd like to see her redemption arc. Zuko's redemption arc is probably the greatest redemption arc since Ebenezer Scrooge's. You know? And someone at my table, we were talking the other day about Iroh's redemption arc, you know, because to lead him from being the war criminal who's laid siege to Ba Sing Se to the kind, wonderful man that we know. And this person said, you know what, Zuko is Iroh's redemption arc. And I think that's absolutely true. That's his redemption arc. That's how he atones for his own past. And it's a beautiful way of thinking about it. If you're sitting out here, thank you again. It was beautiful, quite poetic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
My question is, what was your favorite Avatar cast member to record with?
Probably, you know what? I probably Dante. And the thing is, because I recorded with Dante a lot, it's like Michaela, or you would know her as Jessie Flower. I never even met her until she was an adult. She was a mouse. I said, I don't think I met you because I would remember a smaller version of you running around, but I don't. But Dante I recorded with a lot. And what was really nice is the scene, the forgiveness scene. And Avatar did try to keep us all together when we could, because it's just better when you have your other actors there to, you know, work off of. I would say, though, Dante was my favorite one to work with. And he was so kind to me when I first came on, because I was terrified, because not only was I replacing this character, Mako was their friend. You know, they had worked with Mako, they knew him, and it's like, who is this guy, you know, presuming to come in and take over? And Dante was just, they were all kind to me, to be honest with you, but Dante was my favorite one to read with, I think.
Before I ask my question, I think it's safe to say that this room is a ripple, just a huge group of ripples.
I hope so.
Great quality.
I hope
That's
so.
what we
I
got.
hope so. That makes me happy.
Artistically, I'm just curious, in addition to voice matching Mako, what did you bring artistically to Iroh that kind of, obviously you're matching him and you have to kind of keep that going, like what did you bring to it artistically? That was your own.
Well, you know, I mean, I think I couldn't, I don't know exactly what, but it's just who I am as an artist. Because the first thing that I kept, you know, if it has just been replacing an iconic character, that's fairly simple. But I was replacing the iconic actor that played the iconic character. So literally, even today, Mako's voice is sort of in the back of my mind. And indeed, for example, the I was never angry with you line, which I'm proud of, but I would love to have heard Mako deliver that line, and that would have been really fantastic. I think, I don't know, I mean, I think what's interesting is when I got the role, I probably maybe brought a little more vigor to it, because literally I was 46 when I caught the role, and Mako was 72 when he passed away. So maybe a little more youth to it when I stepped in. But what's interesting is, I mean, I thought when I first started doing it, I thought I sounded nothing like Mako. But the older I get, I'm 62, soon I will be the age Mako was, and as my vocal cords age, I believe it actually improves the quality of the impression, just because I'm legitimately getting older now. You know? instead of pretending to be older or trying to make my voice sound older.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Can I be heard? Okay, I can. I have a question in terms of what is your favorite role to play? Hero, villain, or mentor?
I would have to, I mean, the villains are the most fun. Aku was great fun to play. But I think, foolish samurai! Thank you, that applause was extra thick! But I think at this point, just because I've grown into it and I realize the value of mentors, I think the role of mentor would be my favorite. You know, it just being a, and if any teachers in here, Mike, thank you so much. Teachers, you guys are heroes, you know? I would not be up here today if it was not for some very, very good teachers that I had in my life. So, you know, kudos to you. Thank you for your service, seriously. So yeah, I think probably the role of mentor.
Thank you for being a good mentor to all these people.
You are most welcome, my friend.
Good afternoon, Uncle.
Good afternoon, my friend.
I just want to say I do very much appreciate that shout out for teachers, as I was a teacher for quite a while.
Excellent. Well, good on you, my friend.
Well, thank you. So, with the Avatar series having such a deep emotional impact on so many people over time, I want to ask, in your perspective, do you see any other shows or particular voice credits that are doing justice as well, that are going to have that same impact over time, do you think?
You know what? Not currently. I mean, you know what? Honestly, in terms of Iroh specifically, and the good that character has done in the world, I was watching that Tom Hanks' Mr. Rogers movie, and it occurred to me that Iroh is actually Mr. Rogers for another generation. And I say that in all sincerity because the lessons are the same. Everyone has value, everyone is special, everyone has worth, everybody can be a better person than they are, and above all else, be kind, be kind, be kind, be kind, be kind. And if I had the power to greenlight another Avatar themed series on Nickelodeon, I would love to see Uncle Iroh's Tea Shop. And I would like to see it for preschoolers, and it's just about them learning very gentle lessons and how to treat your fellow man. And believe me, we actually could use a lot of that these days, you know? So, yeah. Did I answer your question? I think maybe, perhaps,
Yes,
sort
that
of.
was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon, Uncle. I just wanted to know if you could sing us a small snippet of Leaves from the Vine.
I love to honor fans' requests, but it is the one thing that I never, ever do. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, I do it to honor Mako, to honor his life, to honor his legacy, and it's my way of saying thank you, man. You've given me so much. Thank you for what you've done, Mako. Then the other reason, which is much more mundane and down to earth, I can't sing it as well. and that moment is so important to so many people, I would not presume to sully that memory. And the cool thing is, I actually have that, I have that option. Now, Paul Sun-Hyung Lee, who's going to be playing Iroh in the Netflix live action, and I'm actually going to be at an event with him next month. It's kind of exciting to have both Irohs together. But he's not going to have the option of not singing that song. And it's like, Paul, you know, no matter which way you turn, it's full of bad choices here. If you sing the song, I knew it was going to happen, that I would have done it. I lost my beard. Am I sounding like Mr. Magoo? I've totally lost my train of thought. No, he's going to have to sing it. If he does sing it, well, some fans won't like it. If he sings a different song, some fans won't like it. If he doesn't sing the song at all, some fans are not going to like it. But, and again, they don't listen to me. Netflix doesn't listen to me either. If they really wanted to make everybody happy, they would use Mako's recording playing under the scene. And that would make everybody happy.
Or
So if
sad.
you're listening, Netflix, you know, no charge at all. Thanks, Mako. All I ask is that you cast the OG voice actors as the Ember Island players. That's all I care about.
Good morning, Uncle.
Good morning, my friend.
So, you said that you were a big fan of theme parks. I highly recommend Defunct Land TV on YouTube.
You know what, Mike? I watch it all. I was watching it just the other day. I was watching it in my hotel room, so yeah.
So you know Shaped Land.
Yes, absolutely. I'm well aware of Freedom Land USA, all fascinating stuff, yeah. I am a theme park nerd, without a doubt.
However, my question was, if you could be in any musical and play any character from that said musical, what musical and what character?
Well, this is again, it's like moving, thinking a little outside the box. I would love to play any musical at all, any role. Mama Rose in Gypsy. Yes! That's a great role, you know. Everything's coming up roses. I had a dream. I think I'd be pretty good. And I might even be pretty.
Hello, Uncle.
Hello, my niece.
Question for you. To aspiring voice actors, do you have any maybe tips or?
There's lots of very specific things you could do. You know, I always say it's a good idea, work on having some impressions because that's just gonna help your range. Dialects are always good, but you know, I learned this in a class and I thought it was the greatest way of building animated characters. Buy yourself a comic book that you've never seen, and maybe a comic book that you don't know.
I used to read Batman comics, so
Exactly.
myself to practice.
You read it and then record yourself reading every single character in the comic book. And that is a great way of learning sort of how to build the characters and you know. But the most important thing, actually, I was 46 when I was cast as Iroh. Many times prior to that, I could easily have said, you know what, I've got this cushy gig at Disney, I'm just gonna give it up, you know, I'm not gonna do this anymore because it hurts too bad when you really want something and you don't get it. And a lot of acting is not getting it and learning to adjust to that and being okay with it.
The disappointment is pretty
Yeah, and that is seriously why literally all actors are narcissists, because you have to be. Literally, I mean, it would destroy you if you're not. You have to believe in yourself that much. But that's circling back. I was 46. The most important thing I can tell anybody is perseverance. If you want something, then you go and get it. And you don't let anybody else in the world tell you that you can't do it. Or to put it as Uncle Iroh might put it, follow your passion and life will reward you. Hello, my friend.
Did you ever get to meet or talk to Mako? And if not, what would you have wanted to talk to him about?
I look forward to talking to him. Just not today. Not anytime soon. No, I never actually met him. The closest I ever came, and it was the second last episode of Samurai Jack. And I'm signing in at Cartoon Network at security, and I noticed that someone ahead of me is signed in as Mako. And I'm going, well, that's kind of a sick joke. What's up with that? You know, but I go in and sign in. I walk back to the green room, and Gendy Tartakovsky, the creator of the show, is there. He said, Greg, come over here. There's somebody I want you to meet. He introduces this woman and this teenager. So this is Mako's daughter, and this is his grandson, also named Mako. They've come here to watch the recording session today. And I'm going, man, I wish you'd give me a heads up on that, Gendy. Because it's one thing to do the voice of a beloved, iconic actor, but it's another thing entirely to do the voice of someone's beloved father who's no longer in this sphere of existence. So I was like, man, I'm really worried. What if she doesn't like it? What if she hates it, you know? Fortunately, I go into the booth, and I cannot see where she and the grandson are sitting, but Phil Lamar can. And he says, the minute that I start to speak, she leans back in a chair. And just does this. And when the session was over, I still get a little emotional thinking about it. She comes right up to me with tears in her eyes and says, thank you so much. It was like he was in the room for me just for a minute. And because you think about things and how they relate to you. And I remember thinking at that time what I would not give, what I would not pay to hear even a subpar impression of my father's voice again. And if I was able to give that to her, you know, I literally everything else that I've done in life is just gravy. If I was able to give a grieving daughter that, then that's, you know, that's better than, honestly, and I love con appearance, it's better than the con appearances, it's better than voice acting, it's the greatest thing that I think I've ever done, because I was able to give that gift back, because they gave me a gift.
Afternoon, Uncle.
Good afternoon, my nephew.
So, I would love to know what should one do about toxic friends or people that they have in their life?
Well, that's coming back around to sort of the Azula question, you know? I mean, really, it's like crazy, you know, are some people just absolutely beyond redemption? I think, honestly, toxic people you should cut out of your lives. You know, you don't have to be mean about it. You don't have to be rude, but we're only on this planet for a very limited number of years, and if someone is not making you happy or even making you absolutely unhappy, then you know, even family members, I think you don't have to, and you should not. And you know, I would call them on their behavior first of all, and if that doesn't work, then you have to just sort of, you know, she's crazy and needs to go down, I guess.
Okay. Shoot, I got that. Before I go, I want to know, what is your favorite Iroh quote?
My favorite Iroh quote, it actually was from Korra. And my wife and I, we live in New Mexico now. We sold our house. And so we literally, everything worked out great. We arrived in New Mexico on March 1st, 2020. So our move to New Mexico didn't quite turn out the way we thought it would. And I remember three weeks later, you know, everyone is freaking out. COVID has hit. I remember taking a walk just to get out of this, you know, Airbnb we were staying in while they were working on the house. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what have we done? You know, I have a daughter in Pasadena, California, a son in New York. We've left them completely alone. It's the end of the world. There's no toilet paper. What are we gonna do? I mean, this is terrible. And I heard some birds singing. And I very clearly thought of Iroh's line from Korra. If you look for the light, you will often find it. If you look for the dark, that is all you will ever see. And from that point on, I think that's not that, I say it's my COVID quote, but I think now that's just my life quote. And what I love about it is it's really just a fancy way of saying be positive. But I love the fact that it says, if you look. And I love the way that's how it begins, because it means you have to make an effort. You have to make a conscious effort to look for the light. And once you decide to look for the light, what you're going to discover to your amazement is the light is all around us. We're literally enveloped by light. Even at nighttime, you can see the stars. So that is sort of my own. Anytime I've had a bad day, even now, you know, I come back to that quote and I remind myself, all right, snap out of it, look for the light, and you will find it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, Uncle.
Hello, my nephew.
I wanted to ask, what is your favorite way to do vocal warm-ups? Or what is your go-to, I guess?
You know, I hate to say it, I don't do vocal warm-ups. I'll just take a shot of bourbon if I need to. That'll fix up the vocal cords nicely, you know. And you drink enough of it, it gives you those nice gravelly tones, you know.
That does
I've got.
In that case, then, what is your favorite theme park ride?
The Haunted Mansion. Yeah. The Haunted Mansion is the greatest ride in the world there ever will be. It is literally the greatest ride of all time, you know. And that's why my favorite voice actor is Paul Frees, the ghost host. And his, you know, every time I hear that voice, you know, welcome, foolish mortals, to Disney's Haunted Mansion. There's always my way. Yes, the Haunted Mansion, and I think probably Pirates of the Caribbean would be. I like the big dark rides, you know, and I have to say, Rise of the Resistance is pretty incredible because it literally incorporates so many different elements from all of their best rides. It's a little bit of a thrill ride, it's a little bit like Star Tours, it's a little bit of a dark ride. I always like to mess with the live actors because they want to know where the rebel spy is, and I'm always, I'll tell you, long live Palpatine, I'll tell you everything you want to know. So they don't know how to deal with that.
Thank you, Uncle.
You are most welcome.
Hello, Iroh.
Hello, my friend.
My question is, what's your favorite episode of Avatar and why?
Ba Sing Se, Tales from Ba Sing Se. For I think the same reason as everybody else's. That song just kills every time you watch it, you know. And the fact that you know that the apocryphal tale is that it was the last thing he ever recorded. That's not true. But he would have definitely probably have known about his diagnosis when he was recording it. And that just makes it hit that much harder when you hear that song, you know. And I also just like the vignette style of that and how all the stories come together. And I would also say the series finale, I would be hard pressed to think of another series that ended as perfectly as Avatar: The Last Airbender. I mean, it's tied up everything so beautifully. Just don't ask me who I ship. I'm not going with us. Chitara.
So unfortunately, we have just 5 minutes left, so we're going to get as much of the line as we can.
All right,
but let's do a speed
I'll
round.
answer quickly.
My uncle.
Hi.
Lightning round. I'm that short, I know. Thank you for playing. playing Iroh. I watched the show during the pandemic and it really helped. I really appreciated that. I wanted to know, do you have any headcanons about like the characters, or like you think there's a different kind of element out there that people bend that nobody knows about or something like that?
Well, I've always been fond of elbow bending, as you know. I enjoy that. There is, I have some because I've always wondered about Mrs. Iroh. She's never mentioned, not once, and it seems odd that Iroh would never mention the mother of his son. In my own headcanon, what probably happened is I think she probably died in childbirth, giving birth to Lieutenant, and it's the one thing that is so painful he cannot even talk about it to anybody else. And I think that's a question I intend to ask Mike and Brian at some point, because it seems odd to me that not once is she even mentioned. And speaking of Lieutenant, it would be really cool when in the Korra, where they're in the spirit world, wouldn't it have been cool if they're all there with the spirit animals, having their spirit cake, and if Lieutenant came and sat down at the table with them? Would that have killed, right? Talk about the feels, man. That would have done it. That would have done the trick. You're most welcome. Hello, my nephew.
My question is, what was your experience like working for Cartoon Network versus Nickelodeon?
Pretty much about the same. I mean, I was working with geniuses both places. I was working with Mike and Brian there at Gendy Tartakovsky, the other place, and I've got to work with Dave Filoni as well. So I literally have got to work with some of the greatest geniuses in all of animation right now. In terms of, I like the building at Nickelodeon better because it's done in all these wacky colors, and there are no straight lines. The furniture is all sort of curvy and Nickelodeon-like. But yeah, both of them are just about the same in terms of companies,
Thank you, Uncle.
You're most welcome.
Let's hold the applause so we can get through more.
Hello, Uncle.
Hello.
If you could drink a cup of tea anywhere in the Avatar universe, where would it be?
Probably Bossing Say. I think probably at the Jasmine Dragon. Absolutely. Where else would I drink tea? I know that's going to be the best tea in town. So that's where I'm going.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello, my friend.
Are there any new situations that you want to see in the new Avatar movies?
Well, I should say, I would like to see the story. Very much, I'd love to do a prequel. Love to see a prequel. I'd like to learn more about the relationship between Ozai and Iroh. In fact, I think the Brothers would be a great title for that show. I'd like to see that, and as I mentioned, I'd like to find out what's up with Mrs. Iroh, and I don't care. I also would like to see Azula's have some redemption. Azula deserves some happiness, I think.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, Uncle.
Hello, my niece.
Because we are at Tea with Uncle Iroh, my question is, what kind of tea do you like? How do you drink it?
People want me to say that I like jasmine tea or Darjeeling tea or oolong tea. I was raised in Texas by Texans. What sort of tea do you think I like to drink? You know what I'm talking about.
It's been, welcome, Uncle.
It's good to be here, my friend.
You've been discussing your love of classic Hollywood and classic musicals, and I wanted to talk about your role in Hail Caesar. It's very short, but it's very funny, and I kind of wanted to know what it was like being on set with the Coen brothers.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was better than a USC film school, literally, just by watching how they worked. And I've always been interested because I love my brother, but there's no way I would work closely with my brother nor him with me. That would just not work out. We'd end up hating each other. So I wanted to know how they did it. And I don't know if this is how they do it on every film, but when I was there, when we were on set, Joel was clearly the one. He would confer with his brother after the shots, but he was the one who called action. He was the one that was lining everything up with the cinematographer, Roger Deakins, and all that. And what was interesting is later when I went back to do some looping, after the post-production process, it was Ethan who was calling all the shots in the editorial bay. So I'm wondering if that's not the way they work. They write it together, Joel sort of directs the thing when they're actually in production, and Ethan sort of seems to handle the post-production. But that's just what I saw. I don't know if that's how they always do it. I do know that one of the coolest days of my life, I'm a big fan of the Santa Claus movie, the first one, specifically Bernard the Elf, an actor named David Krumholtz. And he was one of my fellow communist writers. I think it was the last day of shooting, and I was sitting down at the commissary, and I was so excited because I asked him to have lunch with me, and I'm a big fan of David Krumholtz and Bernard the Elf. So I'm going, wow, I'm so excited, I'm sitting here. Joel Cohen sits down at the table with us. Oh, now I'm with David Krumholtz. I was already a fanboy about that. And now with Joe Cohen. I'm sitting up at a table with Joe Cohen. And then who should walk up and join us but Mr. Clooney himself, who was a lovely man, and I was just freaking out. And the weird thing is, there's no justice in this universe. George Clooney is 3 years younger than me. Only 3 years younger than me. That is just messed up, man. That's not right. I intend to have strongly words about that when I just not right, man. You're welcome.
Hello, Uncle.
Hello, my nephew.
Just real quick, Iroh himself said that he wasn't sure who would win in a fight between him and Ozai. So who do you think would win?
Probably at the end of the day, I think Iroh probably would win because you want to believe that good is always going to defeat evil. And I think he would probably make the same choice Aang made. If he could, I don't think he would kill his own brother. You know, there was, and that's why it was so beautiful. That show was so filled with grace and forgiveness, even with Ozai himself. It would have been so easy to have just killed him. But Ozai lives. And in some ways, it was actually harsher for him to live without his powers. But the fact that Aang could not kill him at the end was one of the, literally, it's like the chef's kiss on the whole thing, you know?
I agree. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we are right at time, so this is going to be our last question. I apologize to everyone else in
Sorry.
line, but will you be in the autograph room?
I will be in cosplay at my booth, so if you want a picture with me in cosplay, come and see me. And then I'm here till 5 o'clock, and then I fly out tonight at 8 o'clock, and boy, will my arms be tired. That's an old joke. I'm an old man. I know, there's a reason why the joke still works.
Hi, Uncle.
Hello.
How did you get big into voice acting?
I knew I always wanted to be an actor since I was 10 years old. And we moved to LA with my wife in '87 to hit it big in Hollywood. And I was pretty lucky. I had been there maybe about 2 years, and I got 5 McDonald's commercials. And I thought, wow, and my SAG card. So I thought, man, 5 McDonald's commercials. I'm going to be rich. We actually went to Vegas that night. And I would have been rich if it hadn't been for McDonald's pizza. Seriously, Google it. McDonald's tried pizza, serving pizza in the late 80s. So anyway, and then we had 2 kids 11 months apart. We had our Irish twins, you know. And then I was just a dad for 10 years while the kids were little. And then finally, the bug, he bit me again. I said, I got to go back and do some theater. And I did a play where I had to play multiple characters. And the director says, you do a lot of voices, Greg. You should go and take classes with my friend Sue Blue, who also is an animation casting director. And Sue liked me. She was gracious enough to call and snag me an agent. And another thing, people ask about getting into voice acting. Honestly, classes are a fantastic way of doing that. Because not only do you learn the craft, but you're meeting people who can probably help you. You're meeting people who might have a voiceover agent. And it's a lot easier for somebody to say, hey, listen to this demo from my buddy, than just literally getting this submission blindly through the mail. And so that's sort of how that happened. It's not so much that I found voice acting, but I guess it found me. You are most welcome. Before we go, I do want to take a selfie with all of you. So everybody move forward to the stage,